happened to wisdom? We're not seeing much wisdom on the nightly news. Oh, that's right. Trauma, drama makes better headlines and more money. But what if the wisdom crisis is not just out there, but inside each one of us, inside the structure of our own brain? And what does brain structure and function have to do with wisdom? Well, more than we realized. We were wrong, not the first or last time for so-called experts to be wrong. For decades, I taught what I learned about our brain. Turns out, the left brain hemisphere is not the seat of truth, wisdom, and logic. Turns out, the right brain hemisphere is not frivolous and fraught with emotions. And what if, when we know ourselves and explore the design and function of our very own brain, the mystery unfolds and aha happens. Welcome to Truth Talk Wisdom Walk with C.A. Curtis. I'm Carolyn. Up front, my brother John was a genius with a photographic memory. How is that fair? He never had to study. Not me. I had to study long and hard, but at least it stuck. Exploring the human brain is deep, and it may be the final frontier, more complex than the cosmos. The deeper we look, the more profound the complexity we have to unwrap. Male and female brains differ from each other. Our hemispheres differ from each other. And what we do know is, as usual, not at all there is to know. Meanwhile, the human mind is even more mystifying. Modern science is catching up with what Isaac Newton knew all along with prophets, sages, kings, and shepherds from ages ago. Today, I'm wearing my teacher hat. So let's pretend this is Brain Science 101. New discoveries about brain science leave me in awe. Dr. Lee Warren, a practicing neurosurgeon, has a podcast in his helpful book titled The Life-Changing Art of Self-Brain Surgery. Dr. Daniel Amen's book, Change Your Brain, Change Your Life, is a classic, and I recommend books to my clients. We know the brain rewires itself, and that what we focus on can shrivel our brain or make it more resilient. It is about change. Of course, we know the brain is always changing, but what are we hoping to change? What do we want to focus on changing? What is it about our brain that we can change? To help with positive change, today my focus will be on some material that I picked up from The Matter with Things, Our Brains, Our Delusions, and the Unmaking of the World, Volumes 1 and 2. And here we have 1,500 small print pages, including parallel footnotes. Yeah, Dr. Ian McGilchrist's right and left brain hemisphere hypothesis is supported by his extensive research. And this is like part of his life work, okay? In all due respect, it's very worth a read. So on we go. This episode, I remind you, is only an introduction to this brainy subject. His website, channelmcgilchrist.com, is one place to go for case study and research details. Dr. Ian insists we rethink our ideas and theories about what we see, believe, and do. His words go further to suggest our ideas about science and philosophy are determined by which brain hemisphere is in charge. Put simply, the larger right hemisphere sees and comprehends the real world, while the smaller left hemisphere apprehends bits of information and makes a map. The map, or description, is, as always, a reduction, never the territory or relationship itself. Caution, for the left side, the map is everything. Our right brain knows better. The kind Dr. Ian prepares us for left brain hemisphere challenges with a reminder of an ancient theme from The Sorcerer and His Apprentice by Johann Goethe. The apprentice, left alone, dares use magic for his simple cleaning chore. He floods the place and almost drowns, but for the return of his master. Power in the hands of ignorance and arrogance is dangerous and deadly. We need both hemispheres, which is no doubt why we have them. They work best together with the right one in charge. Otherwise, we could get stuck in left brain utility or self-righteousness. To make this easier, I'll not keep repeating the word hemisphere. We only have two, right brain hemisphere, left brain hemisphere. So let's just keep it simple for now with right brain and left brain. The division of brain labor appears to be about survival. We are aware of our surroundings with our right brain, while we focus on capturing our food with our left brain. Sadly, the left only sees what it's willing to accept from the right, and may think it knows everything, while lacking insight or comprehension of the real picture. Oops, another can't see the forest for the trees example of stubborn. Our human brain shows exquisite design. Keep in mind that this chart that I'm going to show you is my effort to simplify brain science complexity. But charts are like a map, very left brain, and only symbols of reality. However, when you see the difference of how your left and right brain sees the world, you will no longer be shocked at what you see on the news, in politics, religion, or in your next family fight. Hang on for a wild ride into why we do what we do and what part of our brains can get stuck in pride. What part of our brains can even consider wisdom as relevant? And what do you think? My chart draws from many resources. Psych 101, Abnormal Psych, which I briefly taught at Puget Sound Christian College. It also draws from Dr. McGilchrist, Jordan Peterson, John Gottman, Chris Palmer, and others. And here goes for the chart. I'm going to start with the left hemisphere because that's the best place to start. So here goes for the unveiling. And there it is, the left hemisphere. I had pages and pages of notes, and I just had to get it down in some coherent fashion. And so here it is. The left hemisphere, what is it doing? It's mainly about focus of attention. I'm not addressing mind right now, I'm addressing brain. So it's about focus of attention. The left hemisphere apprehends, takes hold of things. It's about the me. The left hemisphere operates in known territory, and it is complicated and kind of makes things complicated, which is okay. We need complicated, but it's not all there is. It's about the me. It's about the detached self, the parts, the map. Like this is just a map. It's about the explicit, the rigid, the stasis. It's just like set. The left hemisphere grabs, uses, controls. It's kind of my theory that this is where actually lust and pornography dwell. And you'll understand more of that later. Because this is about the me. This is about arrogant. This is about judge. And you don't want to be the judge. You don't want to be the proud, the cynical. You want to be, well, more right hemisphere. The left hemisphere is about word processing, the A, B's, and C's, the dictionary, the encyclopedia, the syntax. Left hemisphere is about the linear thinking. Yep, just linear, one little thing right after the other. It's logical, can also be illogical. Legalistic, very certain. Now, I do have certainties. I have a certainty, I'm not God. Left hemisphere is about numbers, symbols, utility, and mechanisms. Left hemisphere is about the fine motor actions. You just take it, you slice it, you dice it, and you eat it. Or you put it into a chart. You make it so that you can work with it. Fine motor. Yeah, it activates behavior. Now, sometimes the behavior it activates, and again, kind of to my theory is that the left hemisphere is where the misuse of power and the zero-sum game happen. This is where the zero-sum game is I win, you lose, you don't even matter. That's the zero-sum game. To the left hemisphere, the only reason you could matter is for your usefulness. The left hemisphere is where Gottman's 4 horsemen of the apocalypse live. 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. That's the 4 horsemen, okay? He called it well. That's contempt, which really a natural result of someone treating you with contempt is that you stonewall to really protect your heart. That is where criticism lives, that constant criticizing. And the normal response to constant criticism is self-defensiveness. And so that's why counseling is needed, and that's why stopping those behaviors are needed. And there are just ways that really help. Left hemisphere is where self-righteousness happens. Well, that doesn't help when you're in a zero-sum game or playing the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, does it? Left hemisphere is where delusion is. It's where that authoritarian, demanding tendency can be. It's where the paranoid stuff happens. It also can be happy, irrational, makes idols, is really the place of experiencing disgust and aggressiveness, and unique to just anger. Just that is where angry resides, primarily. So a lot of these are this is the primary function that you most often see, and that sadly that you most often then experience at the tragic experience of someone who's very aggressive with you and very angry and raging in the streets. This is where this happens. On the other hand, we need this because it helps speed up word processing. It enables us to have dictionaries and encyclopedias. So we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We need the left hemisphere. But let's look at, what are the functions of the right hemisphere? And here we are for the unveiling. The right hemisphere, this is where the beautiful we happens. This is about comprehending, whereas the left hemisphere was about grabbing hold of and apprehending. This is about comprehending. This is about connection, about the embodied self, the context of the whole territory. This is where the implicit happens and the flow. And by the way, this is the flow of time and space. This is where flexibility is. Loving, caring, sharing. This is where humble is. Because this is where humble is, this is where wise can happen. And that's why I'm talking about this in the wisdom section, because we need more wisdom. This is where discerning and forgiving happen. Right hemisphere, because it comprehends the bigger picture. It's about image processing. And really, without this, part of the image processing and the meaning and concepts, how do you read people's faces? This is where reading people's faces happens. People who have trouble with that, like happens tragically with autism, they have difficulty reading faces. And that makes life extremely hard, very, very hard. And so you have holistic thinking, you have complexity. It's not complicated, it's complexity. Insight, it's open, uncertain, and uncertain keeps it humble. So part of this uncertain is if there is a theory, if right hemisphere has a theory, and you present evidence that that theory is incorrect, there's a willingness to take another look. Oh, perhaps I'm missing something. Perhaps I need to broaden my understanding of that. And by the way, so this is where higher concepts happen that, well, things that we haven't understood in science and stuff. This is, you really need this right hemisphere to come to those new understandings. It's because it has that uncertainty and it's open and it's coherent. It checks for coherence. If things aren't coherent, it's like, oh, smell test doesn't pass the smell test. Sees the patterns and makes patterns, has to do with the gross motor action. Inhibits behavior. And this is quite interesting that it's the right hemisphere that is so highly involved with inhibiting behavior. And as such, it often mediates the social and emotional behaviors because this is what enables you to pause before you just act on a feeling or a thing. It's like, maybe that's not such a good idea. This is what enables you to delay gratification. Wait, learn what you need to learn. Build a nest before you have kids, right? Well, that's a good idea. The birds seem to understand that, at least most of them. This is where you have the grateful, the moral, the creative, honesty. You have honesty, which is extraordinarily important. Without the honesty, where would the moral decisions be? Because there has to be an honesty about your own self and why you're doing what you're doing. It is where poetry, humor, and irony hang out. The right hemisphere is all about beauty and paradox. It's about music and metaphor and art. In all honesty, I don't consider this an art project. This is a chart project. But you look at the great art, and I do have my questions about like the modern art that is just like, did a human do that or did just chickens walk over it? Anyway. And some of that looks actually quite interesting. So the right hemisphere, as it's comprehending things, that's where realistic and somber. And so because it's somber and it sees the sadness of the world, it is where depression can hang out. And I'm not talking about the deep clinical depression or the psychosis and things like that, which would be the left hemisphere primarily. No, this is about just that sadness, and you're just aware. You're aware of the pain and sadness of the world. And so you look at that and you think, wow, what can I do to help? What will it look like if we come together and help each other grow? What will it look like if we take care of each other? Now I'm going to explain how these work together. First, it's little time for a tea break. So this happens to be my brain tea, which is a combination of peppermint and rosemary, fresh out of my garden. So let's look at how both hemispheres work together like they're supposed to. And it's a tragic thing when they're not functioning the way they need to. But primarily we're going to look at what it looks like when they are working together with just a few examples of when they're not working together. So you have the focus of attention. This is what is happening. Your focus of attention for the right hemisphere is about comprehending the whole picture. It's the we, it's the connection, it's the embodied self. It's the embracing one another. While you have the focus of attention of the left hemisphere is about the me. It's about apprehending, taking to use, which is helpful when we need to hunt for food. We need to be doing that. So it's about focus of attention in the known territory, which can be quite complicated. That's left hemisphere. Focus of attention for the right hemisphere is about comprehending, and that's going to be about awe and wonder, and it is operating in the new territory. So it has to do with complexity. So here you have awe and wonder and operating in new territory and the complex. Here you have operating in the known territory, which is complicated. It's about labeling things. It's about seeing the word heart, H-E-A-R-T. It's about putting these things in sentences. It's about seeing the pictures, and kind of interestingly, maybe that's where modern art comes in. The picture of a person may have arms and legs and parts in the wrong place if you don't have the hemispheres working together. So this hemisphere helps you get the body parts in the right order. This is about the word heart, the word hill, and maybe the picture of hill, the word tree, picture of tree, the me, the river, the grass, things, the theory, and the abstract. Where you have the right hemisphere about the relationships and the love and the heart to heart and the face to face. And the is, what is right now, what is real, about purpose, about meaning. The right hemisphere is where cooperative happens and generous. Left hemisphere is where competitive happens. Now, we need competitive, but this also can be, well, certainly can be where selfish happens, because primary focus is just the me, not the we. So when you have the competitive, and tragically what can happen in families and relationships is you can have one person becoming, or both, becoming competitive about who the kids like most, kind of competitive about who wins all the time, and that does not work well in families or any relationship for that matter. You need competition in sports. You need cooperative also in sports, because you got to cooperate with your team. Otherwise, you're going to be playing the zero-sum game. That's a bad picture, because the zero-sum game would be where the quarterback wouldn't want the receiver to catch the ball. No, everybody loses in the zero-sum game. So you want the competitive and the cooperative being able to work together, but that takes both sides. And just I did this little picture just to give an idea. Obviously, this is an oversimplification for what is actually happening. But the right hemisphere is taking in the information from the environment all the time. It's taking in information, it sends it over to the left hemisphere, which slices, dices, cubes it, puts it in some kind of order but it may not be a logical order, like a story order, the way it needs to be. It's just in the order that the left hemisphere thinks it needs to be in. So it's deconstructing, it's sorting, it's categorizing. Both sides can categorize, they just categorize differently. Sends that information back to the right hemisphere, which reintegrates it, adds new information and new reality, takes in new information there, sends it back to the left hemisphere, again, divides, sorts, breaks down, sends that back where it's reintegrated in the right hemisphere with what is going on right now. It's enriched with understanding and more information, sending it back into that left hemisphere where it is again divided, sliced, diced. And when there is a theory set, it's going to take that theory and be pretty solid and have a great deal of certainty about that theory, sends information back to that right hemisphere, which again, it reintegrates it, it revitalizes it with new information, it adds wisdom, sends it back toward that left hemisphere. And by the way, this is highly complex. I'm doing a very simple thing just to give you the idea. Sending that information back to the left hemisphere, but what happens? What happens if the left hemisphere decides that it just doesn't need or like the new information? And it just gets set. It gets set in a hard and fast theory, and it refuses to take the new input from that right hemisphere, which will continue trying, if it's able, to get through with the new information. But sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes a person gets really rigidly stuck here, and they will reject whatever does not fit their little theory. In fact, if they're doubted, they will double down. And it's a good thing to realize when you're dealing with somebody who is stuck there, and it might be time to just take a break, and I just have to go walk in the woods. So when you know that you're talking to somebody who's really stuck there, arguing does not help. It really does not. Because they have to feel safe. They have to feel safe before they're ready to take in new information. And maybe they need to take a camping trip or go fishing. So, but this is where double down stuck happens, because the left hemisphere has a tendency to want to disregard the right hemisphere, whereas the right hemisphere respects the left hemisphere's input. The right hemisphere comprehends the left brain fallacy. It comprehends the pride, and it works to regain mastery over that left self. And this is where the problem happens. When this cannot get through and go back to sending new information and they're working together, when it ends up with stuck. Because this is where the left hemisphere will fabricate. It'll just make up stories. It thinks they're true, or it might just be willing to lie about it, knowing it's not true. Because remember, that right hemisphere has to do with what is true, what's honest, and what's moral. That is not operant here. So therefore, this is where that cult leader ends up. Or this is where the egomaniac who is designing the new utopia and has all these rigid, horrible rules that break people. Because the most important thing to the left hemisphere is that you do it like it says you should do it. And tragically, because of this, what happens is that left hemisphere will build idols, make itself a god, and sit on the throne. Again, that cult leader who's using people, taking advantage of them, because all of a sudden they think that they're gods. They're gods. No humility, all pride. This area it deals with fantasy, which is not at all the same thing as imagination. Imagination. Imagination is what helps you when you open the refrigerator and you look inside and you see that little tiny part of the ketchup bottle you recognize. The imagination is what tells you, well, that's the ketchup bottle. And you can find it because your imagination is working. Whereas fantasy, that's just making up stuff. Also, this is dealing with the intuition, which is critically important. Again, the intuition, the ability to inhibit behavior, that recognizing faces, seeing sadness. Your left hemisphere doesn't recognize the sadness. It just thinks everybody looks just happy. Well, so it's not going to recognize the woundedness or the sadness that they have precipitated on people. So that's how this tends to work together. So there you have. I have a theory that I've long had a theory that the letter of the law is on this side, while the spirit of the law is on this side. This side, you have a tendency toward left hemisphere can be very stuck in atheistic perspective, whereas right hemisphere is more open to a theist perspective because there's a recognition of a cosmic and intelligent designer who designed the whole thing and set it in motion. Both sides deal with language and reason and science. The right hemisphere is more capable of dealing with the complexities of physics. This is more comfortable, just like dealing with biology. Let's slice and dice that little frog and make lists and labels. That's more comfortable here. Okay, so there you have it. We need both sides. We need both sides working together all of the time. And this helps us understand why we need both sides working together. And in the next episode, I'll be talking more about what happens when you have the right hemisphere underfunctioning for whatever reason, or the left hemisphere underfunctioning, again, for whatever reason. And they're not working together as they were designed, because they're designed to be working together with the mediation of this corpus callosum, which is right here in the middle. The corpus callosum has to do with connection and specialization, because the sides it's what it's dealing with. It's about efficiency. It's really about metabolic efficiency, and it's about the inhibiting the interference between the sides. Once a side is specializing in something, then you don't have a lot of interference back and forth. And that really makes a difference if this isn't working correctly. And there are differences actually in here with the male and the female brain. The female brain has less inhibition. The male brain has been shown to actually spend a little more time here. And you may recognize when the female brain is spending too much time here, because this can be a pretty judgmental space. And that's what you're going to see. And I really notice this. I've noticed this a lot dealing with couples that have come into me through the decades. That when somebody's stuck, whether I'm dealing with the male or the female that is really stuck over here, it can be very difficult for them to come together, because whoever's stuck in this zero-sum game here, now you can learn. And that's what needs to happen. When you recognize the pattern and you see, oh my goodness, that's the pattern I'm in. I'm doing the zero-sum game. When you recognize that pattern, you're actually able to get out of it, because a lot of people are just doing what's been a habit. They saw their parents do the same thing, and so they've learned it to just act that way. But when they see actually the picture of what happens when they're stuck in that left brain judgmental place, that they actually can change. They can realize, oh, maybe I need to get off the throne of judgment and create a space for forgiveness and change and coming together. So, yeah. So, now we know more about differences. Now we know why some of us get a joke while others don't. And explaining leaves humor pretty naked. Now we know why some appreciate iridescent sunsets, haunting melodies, and notice the first daffodils of spring, and others don't particularly care. Some focus on tight schedules, the next job to finish, bills to pay, or the latest tech. And we need to use both hemispheres working together. We would likely starve physically and emotionally if we didn't pay bills and attend to details while also loving each other and celebrating family dinners. So looking at this chart, we can see how we can get stuck in the dreary details of duty, stuck in black and white rules, devoid of compassion, insight, and wisdom. When basic needs for food, safety, and shelter are met, we often keep building empire instead of sharing in community. Our cultural focus on left brain things as superior to right brain experiences drives us further from being in face-to-face relationships, seeing, sensing, and knowing each other. I was spending way too much time in left hemisphere. There are things you can do about that. So I'm studying late at night, and I'm experiencing because I'm studying hard things, it just dawned on me, what am I doing? What am I doing studying this at 11 o'clock at night instead of just relaxing and being with my family? And so I took apart and got out of that left brain stuck place, and that's what we really need to do. Because it's even in crowds that we can feel alone. And some lonely souls may buy into believing that they have a relationship with the mimicry, circuitry, and plastic of AI and robotics. This is an increasing concern. Our left brain hemisphere is a great assistant with serving self, using things, and building machines. And we do need to wrap our experiences in words, books, and libraries so that we don't have to keep reinventing the wheel. But remember, language is in both sides. This is more complex language. Anyway, where would we be without directions and directories? We need both working together. Our left brain assistant with our right brain executive in charge. On his website, Dr. Ian states, psychological literature confirms without question that these three relationships, first, with a social group with whom we can share life and worship, eat together. Second, with the natural world, seeing yourself as part of it and aware of its beauty and complexity. And third, with the divine cosmos. These dictate whether we become happy, functioning, healthy human beings. Without them, both our mental and physical health decline. We become distressed, anxious, and rudderless. He warns of impending doom if we continue moving toward left brain hemisphere power, ignoring right brain hemisphere wisdom. The choice is ours to make. Speaking of choice, what part of you observes your story? What part of you sees your habits and patterns? What part of you writes your story, and how true is it? Think about what you think. Observe any stuck spaces, stuck memories. What have you suffered? What did wisdom teach you? We cannot change the past, but we can grow from the past. Retrain your brain. Suggestions for how to stop toxic self-talk are in episodes 15 and 16, Thoughts Stop and Truth Talk. and I will be dealing with that in later episodes also. Use your right mind and practice staying in right brain. Wisdom matters and you matter. Use both brain hemispheres with right brain wisdom. Our lives depend on it. Encourage one another, love truth, be grateful, and do good. Until we meet again.